you think of Jessy Raphael, the first thing that comes to mind has to be her trademark red glasses. The iconic talk show queen stood out not only because of her bold look, but also for how she tackled controversial topics on daytime TV.
For 18 years, Jessy Raphael was the warm, safe center of daytime TV. With her red glasses and deep empathy, she was America's mom, but that comforting image was a lie. The real woman was a hardened war correspondent, trapped in a caricature she despised, forced to feed a machine that demanded chaos. She was the mother confessor to a nation, yet behind the scenes, she was slowly suffocating in a neon-lit prison of her own making. That Sally character became her golden handcuffs, dragging her deeper into a moral swamp until the day it finally claimed a life. Why was she erased from history overnight? The answer isn't low ratings. It was a cold-blooded execution by an industry trying to bury its own sins. The journalist in golden handcuffs. Long before the red glasses, there was just Jessy, and she was a killer. She wasn't an entertainer, she was a broadcaster and a pioneer. Born in New York, she was a serious journalist, with a degree from Columbia University who spoke 5 languages. In the 1950s and 60s, a time when women were mostly relegated to secretarial pools, she was a war correspondent for Associated Press reporting from the front lines in Cuba during the revolution. She wasn't just in media, she was a grinder. She was tough, real, and spent over 20 years in the trenches of radio and TV news long before Oprah or Jerry ever faced a camera. Her career was a brutal fight for survival, where she was fired from 18 different jobs. She wasn't a yes woman, but a tough, sharp news hen in a man's world. She was told she was too old, too ugly, or too smart for the camera, and told to change her name or get a sexier voice. But she refused. By the early 1980s, her career had stalled. She was fired, broke, and in her 40s, which was a death sentence for a female broadcaster at the time. She was desperate for a job and about to declare bankruptcy when the call finally came. A local TV station in Cincinnati was looking for a talk show host, and this is the moment that sealed her fate. Sally flew in for the audition, but she had broken her own glasses. Panicked, she ran to a local drugstore and bought a cheap pair of red reading glasses for a few dollars. When she walked into the audition, she hated them and thought they looked ridiculous, but the producers loved them. They didn't see Jessy the war correspondent. They saw a gimmick and a brand. The red glasses became the condition of her employment and were almost immediately written into her contract. She hated it and felt like a clown, later saying she felt she was betraying her serious journalist background. But she needed the job, and this was the birth of her golden handcuffs. The red glasses were a mask, a cartoon costume she had to wear in exchange for a paycheck. Those cheap plastic frames didn't just define her look. They eventually blinded her to the monster she was helping to create. Her show, Jessy Raphael, launched in 1983 and became a hit, but it was a very specific kind of hit. It wasn't Oprah, who was aspirational and talked about books and spirituality, nor was it Donahue, who was the king of issues and politics. Sally's show was personal. She was the queen of relationships. Her topics ranged from "My husband cheated and I'm still with him" to "I was a man. Now I'm a woman," or "I was reunited with my long-lost child." She was different because she wasn't preaching, she was listening. Her persona, as the caring, sensible mom in the red glasses, connected with millions of viewers who felt unseen. Her signature move was to leave her podium, walk into the audience, and hand her microphone to a regular person, giving a voice to people who had never been on television. She won an Emmy and built an empire on empathy. She wasn't just a host, she was Sally. For a decade, that was enough to make her a daytime giant and a respected, beloved figure. But then, the monsters arrived. The ticking time bomb of trash. The mid-1990s changed everything as the daytime talk show landscape, which Sally had helped build, became a brutal, bloody war. First, Morton Downey Jr. proved that rage got ratings. Then Ricky Lake proved that young, confrontational audiences were a goldmine. And then Jerry Springer arrived. Springer, a man whose show was produced in the same building as Sally's, unleashed a new brand of chaos with chair throwing, bleep button pounding, DNA test revealing mayhem. Behind the scenes, producers were masters of psychological warfare, reportedly keeping guests in separate rooms without food, but with plenty of alcohol. priming them like explosives before the cameras even rolled. Producers from Sally and Jerry were literally fighting in the hallways to poach each other's outrageous guests. The sound of the Jerry chants echoed down the hall as a constant daily reminder of what they were up against. Suddenly, Sally's gentle, empathetic kitchen table talk show looked boring, old, and tired. The pressure from her producers at Universal was immense, as syndicators demanded ratings and affiliates threatened to drop shows that couldn't compete with the Springer circus. The message from the top was simple: compete or die. This was Sally's personal hell, as the serious Columbia-educated journalist was now being forced to produce trash. She hated it. In interviews, she confessed she despised the new topics. She would get scripts for shows like "My Teen is a Monster," "I'm Marrying My Cousin," or "My Mom is a Sex Worker," and she would fight with her producers asking why they were doing this. She felt her show had become a freak show, but she was trapped by the money, the fame, and the red glasses. She was cashing multi-million-dollar checks to wear a costume and host a show she no longer respected. And then, the war claimed its first victim. In 1995, on The Jenny Jones Show, a guest named Scott Amador revealed a secret crush on his neighbor, Jonathan Schmitz. The show's producers had framed it as an ambush and lied to Schmitz, telling him he was meeting a secret admirer who could be a woman. On stage, in front of a cheering crowd, Amador was revealed. While Schmitz laughed it off in the moment, he went home and raged. He found a note from Amador on his door, and 3 days later, he bought a shotgun, drove to Amador's trailer, and murdered him in cold blood. A shockwave went through the industry because this wasn't TV anymore. This was life and death. Schmitz was convicted of second-degree murder, and Amador's family filed a massive lawsuit against the Jenny Jones Show and Warner Brothers, arguing they were negligent and responsible for his death. In 1999, the jury agreed, hitting them with a $25 million verdict. Even though that verdict was later overturned on appeal, the signal was terrifying. A studio had been found liable by a jury for the actions of a guest, and the ticking time bomb was set. Every producer and studio knew that one more scandal or one more death could end everything. The trash TV era was now legally radioactive, and that scandal would land right on Sally's doorstep. This is the hidden crisis that truly ended her career. It happened in 2000 on an episode called "My Teen is Out of Control." One of the guests was a 19-year-old girl named Gina, who was confronted on stage by her mother and a tough-talking counselor from the Al-Khatib Moving On boot camp. The segment was classic trash TV with yelling, crying, and confrontation as the counselor berated Gina on stage. At the end of the show, Gina agreed to go to the boot camp. 9 days later, she was dead from asphyxia. The investigation revealed she had been restrained so brutally by the boot camp counselors for refusing to take off her shoes that she suffocated. She was forced to lie face down while counselors held her down until she stopped breathing. A $20 million wrongful death lawsuit was filed against Jessy Raphael and the boot camp. This was the moral catastrophe. The Jenny Jones murder was a tragedy that happened after the show, committed by a guest, but this was a death caused by a guest that the show had promoted. Sally's show had platformed the boot camp, endorsed them as a solution, paid for the segment, and facilitated the confrontation that led directly to Gina's death. For Sally, the caring mom in the red glasses, this was the end. Her show wasn't just trash anymore, it was stained with blood. Imagine the horror of realizing that your empathy didn't save a child, but instead handed her over to her executioners on national television. Her persona was shattered, and the empathy was gone, replaced by a lawsuit and a dead teenager. She was mortally wounded, and the studio sharks were circling. The erasing. The boot camp death was the moral blow, but the cultural blow was yet to come. On September 11th, 2001, the world changed, and overnight the entire mood of America shifted. Suddenly, no one wanted to watch teens yell at their moms or see chair throwing and DNA tests. The trash TV era felt disgusting, trivial, shallow, and profoundly unpatriotic in the face of real-world tragedy. The world was on fire while daytime TV was airing "I Married My Cousin." Audiences wanted comfort, seriousness, or lighthearted escapism, so the trash TV bubble burst. The daytime landscape shifted almost instantly, causing Springer's ratings to plummet while the entire genre went into freefall. And then Oprah, the reigning queen, launched her own counterattack against the trash she felt had ruined her industry by introducing Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil was everything Sally was not. He was clinical, professional, serious, and offered solutions instead of just empathy. He was the antidote to the disease of Springer and Sally. He was the serious TV doctor for a sick nation, and Sally Jessy Raphael was now the worst of all worlds. She was a high-priced relic of the disgraced trash TV era, a show now tainted by a wrongful death lawsuit, and too expensive to rebrand. She was toxic, she was old, and she was expensive, so Universal saw their chance. This is the final betrayal, the cold-blooded erasure that explains why she vanished. In 2002, after 18 years of making Universal hundreds of millions of dollars, Sally was called. It wasn't a meeting or a respectful thank you lunch. It was a phone call where she was fired. There was no goodbye show, no farewell tour, and no final sign-off with her famous red glasses. It was even worse than that. Sally later revealed that the betrayal was instant and total. The humiliation was staggering as she recalled being kicked out of her office the day they canceled her, not even allowed to get her files while her Emmy was still sitting on the shelf. 18 years of her life, her awards, and her memories were erased in an instant as she was locked out of the building she had practically built. This is why she vanished. It wasn't just a cancellation, it was a deep, profound humiliation. She was heartbroken, furious, and confessed she fell into a deep depression for years. The industry she had pioneered and helped build had treated her like trash, throwing her in the same garbage bin as the shows she was forced to make. Her disappearance wasn't a mystery. It was an act of survival. She tried a radio show, but it failed because the Sally brand was radioactive. She was the trash TV host who got a kid killed. So she wasn't just off the air, she was unhireable. She was hiding from the world that had so brutally disposed of her. So, how do we remember the woman in the red glasses? We've seen the serious journalist who was trapped inside a persona, a gimmick of red glasses that became her golden handcuffs. We've seen her moral crisis as a woman who hated the trash TV war she was forced to fight. We've uncovered the hidden catastrophe of the boot camp death that shattered her caring persona and gave her studio the excuse they needed. And finally, we've seen the brutal, cold-blooded betrayal of an 18-year career erased by a single phone call, a humiliation so profound it forced her into hiding. Sally's story is a tragedy, as she was the last casualty of the war she never wanted to join, canceled for being the very thing she despised. She walked into the station as a journalist and left as a punchline, proving that in the savage world of daytime TV, your soul is just another line item in the budget. But what do you think? Was Sally Jessy Raphael a true victim of the trash TV era, forced to compromise her ethics by greedy producers? Or was she a willing participant who cashed the checks for 18 years and only cried foul when the bill finally came due? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We have a new video just like this one coming next week. If you love digging deeper than the headlines, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss another video. If you love this story, we've got more celebrity deep dives queued up for you. Just click the videos on your screen to continue. Thanks for watching.